live before the meetup game. Wayne and I are going to head down there in 20 or 30 minutes. So I figured I would just go live and leave this open for questions. If anybody wants to pop in and ask any questions, go ahead. So, um, yeah, I'll give you guys a little tour. This is the Vegas view we've got of the Win. So I figured I'd just be live here for 10 or 15 minutes. And yeah, answer any questions you guys have. I'm actually going to grab a phone stand that I have somewhere in my hotel room. That it's somewhere. You guys won't believe this. I've been in Vegas for 2 days now. I worked out twice while in Vegas. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about the meetup game that's happening in about an hour, feel free to ask them. You can ask me anything. You can ask me strategy. You can ask me pointers. You can ask me about the small blind jackpot. You can ask me about the Venetian. The poker room's amazing. I'll tell you guys that right now. Thank you for the like, for the heads up. You guys tell me that you love my cornrows, hate my cornrows, whatever. I gotta find this. Well, I'm trying to find a fold holder. See, it helps if you plan these things out before you actually just say, screw it, I got 20 minutes, I'll go live. So, yeah, I don't know where the phone holder is, so I'm going to try holding this as still as I can. But yeah, I figured I'd just open this up to any questions. Oh, that's bad lighting. Let's see if we can go like this. That might work. Oh, no. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, coming back to poker, should I just skip Hold'em and focus on PLO? You know, that's a really good question. I would say rather than focusing on PLO or Hold'em, and this depends on your location, like your local casino, if they have PLO, if they have Hold'em, you're better off focusing on which game is better. And I know that sounds terrible because there are some times when Hold'em games are going to be better than PLO games. Not very often, but it does happen. And if you notice that, wow, this Hold'em game over here is just off the charts and people are going nuts, and I got a buddy of mine who's in the game or who was in the game who says that game's crazy, watch out for seat 6, you know, sometimes it makes more sense to go to Hold'em than it does PLO. Same thing with like mixed games. I had somebody, I got here Wednesday night, didn't play any poker, went to the Orleans at 3:30 in the morning because I'm on East Coast time. And even if I go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast, I still wake up at like 6 or 7 in the morning. And so I get up at 3:30. Wayne's asleep. Like I even told him before we went to bed, I was like, "Hey, I'm probably gonna wake up at like 3 or 4 and go have a session." Now I went to the Orleans over the Aria because I don't want to play for parking, and I didn't have a MGM card for the higher level for free parking. So I ended up going to the Orleans, and this guy sat down though, and he was like, Omaha has this game has way more variance than Hold'em. Now keep in mind we were playing 816 limit Omaha high low, and I said high low Omaha has the lowest variance out there, and he was misquoting Jonathan Little, and he came back and he was like, oh, he was talking about pot limit Omaha, and I'm like, yeah, pot limit Omaha has a little bit more variance than Hold'em, but when you look at the actual chart, it's about 12% more when you start doing standard deviation, so it's a little bit more than Hold'em, but not that much more significant. So to answer your question, Swift Poker, it would depend on which game is better. Also, your bankroll. You always want to have enough buy-ins to be able to maintain your bankroll. So, for example, if you only have a bankroll of like $6,000, you're probably better off playing 1-3 no limit until you can get that bankroll up a little bit. On the flip side, if you have a bankroll of like $20,000, $30,000, and you've studied PLO, then I think PLO is overall a much softer game because PLO you can pick easier spots. I shouldn't say easier spots, but you can pick good spots. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's just say the board's like 5-5-8 and you have pocket eights. There's certain situations in which you can get your opponent to put more chips into the pot when all they might have is like a 5, for example. And so you're in a much more commanding position where most of the time in no limit hold'em, if somebody's trying to win like $500, they have to risk $500 of their own money. Where in Parliament Omaha, you are going to get a lot more multi-way. So there are some things that I like about Parliament Omaha over No Limit Hold'em, and I also like some things about Limit as well, because in Limit, even if it's Omaha, in order to win a $400 pot, you don't have to put $400 in the middle. You have to put like maybe $80 to $100. Where in No Limit Hold'em, you have to put in $400 to win 400. Do you like that movie Stranger Things? I saw the first season of Stranger Things when it came out, and I was hooked. Absolutely loved it. I'll be honest with you. Haven't seen the second season. I can't remember if there's a third season. I think there is. I don't. There was a while where I did not have Netflix. I think when Netflix said you're no longer allowed to have multiple home usage accounts, I was on somebody else's account, so I canceled Netflix. But now that they jumped back in, maybe I'll get back to watching Stranger Things. But the things that I've been watching lately, I've been catching up on Suits, The Witcher, and I started watching Resident Alien, which is kind of a goofy one, and The Boys on Amazon. Thanks for the response. Do you have any training sites or PLO course recommendations? Upswing, Advanced PLO Mastery, PLO Mastermind. Here's the Swift. Great question. I get asked by a company called PLO Genius to endorse them probably every 3 months, and I haven't dropped their name a single time. This is the first time I've dropped their name. And there's a lot of sites that have GTO charts and practicing. Now, I'm going to say something. Practicing on GTO sites like that, there's nothing wrong with that. I want to be very clear on this. There is nothing wrong with that. If you don't have anything to practice on or a basis to go off of, that is pretty good. The problem that you run into when you do any type of GTO training, and this was my problem with PLO Mastermind, with PLO Genius, with things of that nature, is they only factor in 6 max usually, maybe up to 8 max, and then they only factor in 100 up to about 200 big blinds. They don't have anything that's 500 big blinds. And some of you might be saying, Professor, when in God's name are you playing on a 500 big blind table? Well, first of all, if you're playing 125, it's only a stack of 2,500. Last night when we played the mixed PLO here at the Venetian, we had, I think, 3 or 4 individuals who had $2,500 in front of them with $1,000 max buy-in. So the challenge that you run into with that is those courses aren't going to teach you how to play deep stack poker. And more times than not, you're going to have deep stack poker even on the lower streaks with Pot Limit Omaha. So even if you're in a 125 game where the max buy-in's 500, say you're playing at Rivers in Illinois or some other places where a 125 will have a max buy-in of 500, even if you have that, you still are going to have people who run it up to $2,500 or $3,000, and then you're still going to have more than one person at that table with that amount. And usually if you're new to Omaha, I tell people if you're not used to playing deep stack poker, just get up, cash out, lock in that win. But eventually you're going to have to start learning how to play deep stack poker with Pot Limit Omaha. It's one of the reasons why I love Pot Limit Omaha over Hold'em. I'll give you a perfect example. So, for example, if the board is, say, deuce, 7, queen, and you have 6, 8, 9, 10, if you have over 500 big blinds, say there's $100 in the pot and you have 2,500, so you have a 25 to 1 SPR. SPR stands for stack to pot size ratio. It makes perfect sense, especially if you're in position, to call a pot size bet. Okay? I know that sounds crazy. Deuce, 7, queen, rainbow, you have 6, 8, 9, 10, because the 7 is your pivot card, and you pick up so much equity on the turn. Keep in mind with Pot Limit Omaha, the key is the biggest bet you can make is on the river if you're both deep stacked enough. So even if you call 100 on the turn or on the flop, and the turn gives you some kind of draw like a 5, a 6, an 8, a 9, a 10, even a jack, and the max bet that they can make it if it's heads up is 300, and then on the river you can end up betting 900. And if they had something like a set of queens, they're just not going to believe you went runner very often. And a lot of times if you're in position, they're still going to bet it if it looks like a like an innocent card. Like say the turn is a 6 and then the river is like a 10. They're like, well, the only thing that beats a set of queens here is 8-9, and is he really calling with 8-9 on a deuce 7 queen board? So I mean, there's some people that are going to find folds there, not very often, but that is going to happen. But so that's the problem that I have with those sites. Like I said, first of all, they're not bad, but they don't teach you how to properly do deep stack poker. And here's the other kicker: they don't do it because AI hasn't figured out how to play pot limit Omaha when you have over 250 big blinds. So I hope that answers your question, Swift Poker. Matt Gellert says, and I don't know what all these symbols are. Matt Geller says, you ever play at Cherokee, North Carolina? It's a great question, Matt. You know, I drove down to Florida twice this year. Oh, wow. Twice I drove down to Florida this year from Michigan. By the way, that's like a 30-hour drive one way. And I drove to Vegas this year and back. I must be crazy. But do you ever play at Cherokee? I drive through about a 2-hour detour around Cherokee. Every time I drive through Kentucky or Charity or North Carolina, I look up the clubs and I'm like, should I stop? Should I stop? I'm like, I'm not sure if I should stop. And it really just depends on what happens. Occasionally I'll stop at Cherokee, North Carolina. I haven't this year though. And sometimes I'll stop. There's a couple of clubs in Kentucky. I can't remember what they're called. Please forgive me. I don't remember what they are. Mujitsu. While I think No Limit Hold'em multi-table tournaments will continue to go strong for many years to come, completely agree with that statement. Do you think there'll ever come a time where PLO will overtake No Limit Hold'em for cash games? Well, here is my best answer for that. And first of all, Mujitsu, thank you for being somebody who's watched my videos, I know, for the last 2 years, because you ask a lot of questions, which thank you very much, by the way. I appreciate that. But do I think PLO will overtake No Limit Hold'em for cash games? I do. And here's one thing that I'm going to tell you. Wayne and I had a meeting with Caesars, the bigwigs at Caesars last year, to try to negotiate a deal like WPT was signing all their ambassadors with, Brad Owen, and GG Poker was signing with Daniel Negreanu and Kinda Cool. Or Kinda England, I should say. I think your Instagram is Kinda Cool. So they were signing all those things, and we started talking to them. Caesars Entertainment, which of course used to be the home of the WSOP, said that they thought the next poker boom, and this is quotes from the bigwigs, was going to be Pot Limit Omaha. And they said, that's why we want you guys to, kind of be the ambassadors of WSOP. And then I think they started negotiations probably with GG Poker probably a year ago when we were talking to them. And then they were just like, why do we need these couple of smaller vloggers about PLO? We have Daniel Negreanu as GG Poker, and if we sell to GG Poker, then he'll basically be an ambassador for WSOP. But I do believe there will come a time where you walk into a poker room, and out of 30 tables, 20 of them will be Pot Limit Omaha. Now, if you look at Europe, that's already happening. In Europe, Pot Limit Omaha, I haven't been to Europe recently. This is something I got off of a friend of mine who came from Europe for the WSOP. First time I ever met him. I've been playing online with him for like a year and a half. Came out to the Airbnb that was paid for by the Madhouse and stayed with us for 2 weeks, and that was pretty cool. 1984 Punks, pardon me, but I thought this must be a PLO channel. My bad. Bye. Yeah, I'm not really sure what to say to that one. My apologies. But yeah, PLO stands for Pot Limit Omaha Professor, not Palestinian Liberation Organization. And as a political science major, as a guy who got a degree from Notre Dame with a degree in political science, I was well aware of what PLO stood for in the general world, if you will. So my apologies if any of you get confused with that. No, this channel is about poker, about Pot Limit Omaha, the life of poker, the life of a poker player, and the random shit that I go through. So yeah, I appreciate that, but no offense to you taking off. That's okay. But yeah, again, ask me any questions you guys want. I'm going to give it about another 14 minutes. Vegas, it's like 106 degrees outside. It's not hot. It's just unbelievably hot. This northerner is not used to this heat by any stretch of the imagination. But the games here at the Venetian is awesome. The poker room is big. The food here, of course, is amazing. The Grand Lux Cafe. I don't know why I didn't have biscuits and gravy ever before today, but definitely add the fried chicken to it. I don't know what it does. It's like it's like an explosion in your mouth. It's like it just hits everything. You're like, wow, this is so good. Oh, I'm only joking. Oh, okay. And I'm interested in politics too. I love poker, so I guess that's why you're in my recommends. Oh, well, good. I'm glad I'm in your recommends. Yeah, as most of you guys know, I do a couple different things with my channel. I have the classroom sessions, and I am going to do more classroom sessions. True story. I was going to my studio to do a PLO 6 video because I know a lot of people have been asking me to do a PLO 6 video, and I finally got enough play and material that I feel comfortable enough to feel like I can do a good PLO 6 video. And by the way, all my classroom videos, just so you guys know, I don't plan them out. I don't say I'm going to cover this topic and then this topic and this topic. I literally put the camera up, I put my hat and my shirt on, I make sure my dry erase markers are good, and then I just hit play. I just hit record. And it's all done within about 20 minutes of a take. I have some outs where, like, if I cough or something, I take out. But yeah, so that's part of my channel, and then I do Life of a Grinder, and then I also do cash analysis. I do have a new video editor, so I'm trying out these really cool Ray-Ban Meta sunglasses. And no, I'm not endorsed by Ray-Ban Meta. Somebody said you should get the Google glasses because they work for YouTube, which I'm looking into that. But I've been recording videos with this for this trip, and it's interesting because they only 3-minute clips, but I'm trying it out, so I do want some feedback on how it ends up looking. Swift Poker, average 125 510 PLO game there. What's the average rec whale winning reg at the table you play on average? What's the average recreational winning reg at the tables you play on average? I'm not really sure what the question is, Swift, but I think what you're getting at is, on average, on a 1-2-5 table, if you're a rec player, how much should you be winning? And if you're a pro, how much should you be winning? So the big difference between pros and recs is generally adjustments. And I talk about this all the time. One of the best questions I ever got asked was at one of my meetup games in Chicago, Rockford Charity Group. When the meetup game was done, I got the guy's name and my phone number, but I'm sometimes bad with names. I went and had a beer with him. We sat down at the hotel because it was a charity game, and I was just having a beer, and he asked me, like, literally the best question I've been asked, which is, what's the difference between a rec and a pro? Because he was considering becoming a pro. And I said adjustments. I said adjustments is huge. But on average, if you're playing 1-2-5, if the max buy-in's 500, if you end up winning $1,000 a session, that's good. There's going to be some times when you're going to have bigger swings than that, both in the positive and in the negative. For example, when I first started vlogging, I was in for $8,000 at a Detroit MGM game with a 1K max buy-in on a 1-3-10 table, and people are like, "This is crazy," So you should be winning a decent amount. Whales like to punt. The most important thing I can tell you at Swift Poker about, how many do you think are regular winners versus fish whales? That's a great question. I think on your average PLO table, you're probably going to have 1 to 2 winners, just on average. So on an 8-9 handed table, you're going to have 1 to 2 winners. I did see that Kessler hit a $1.2 million jackpot. I'm sure all the circuit events, WSOP circuit and WPT events, cheered as they knew Alan was going to be playing their tournaments for the next 20 years. That's my opinion on that. Alan, he's a little bit of a funny guy. I've played with him quite a few times. We've obviously had some Twitter debate back and forth. I'm so glad he didn't take me up on any side bets this summer because I got smoked. Ruben says, Professor, when will we see you running some mixed Hold'em PLO games? Ooh. We're doing mixed PLO at the Venetian right now. And with the small blind jackpot, I don't think we would be opposed to doing a mixed PLO Hold'em game. The challenge that we run into is, I will tell you this: when you do Hold'em and you have a small blind jackpot, it brings the action. When you do Hold'em mixed with PLO, it brings the action. The thing I can't stand about Hold'em tables, and this is a true story, is when you go to a Hold'em table and you look around, there's 9 guys, maybe one female, and 6 of the players have headphones and sunglasses on. They're not sociable. Like, they're just reading a book. It's like, dude, come on, talk to me. Let's be sociable about this. I mean, one thing people will tell you is sometimes I might be an asshole on the table, but I never get upset when I lose. I've had people say you are like one of the best losers I've ever seen because if you lose a big pot, you're just like, whatever. Okay. That takes a lot of years. But in PLO, you see people who are, when they lose like I lost a $2,500 pot last night and it was just like next hand. Like I didn't even, all I said, nice hand. Like it was just one of those things that it just happened. So the thing about Hold'em tables, if people are drinking and having a good time, I don't mind playing Hold'em. If everybody's got headphones and sunglasses on, I got kind of an issue playing Hold'em just because I'm more of a sociable guy. I don't know about Europe, but just be aware, at least in the UK, most casinos and home games will play PLO 6. Yeah, my only issue with PLO 6 live is that it just takes a little bit longer, or at least I think it does. I've never played PLO 6. I shouldn't say that. I've played PLO 6 live once, and it was only for a few hands because the table was short. But generally speaking, yeah, a lot of places are doing PLO 4, PLO 5, PLO 6 at the tables usually. PLO 6 is garbage. I have a new game, okay? You get dealt 5, keep 3, and lose 1 on the flop. I went to a house game that had something like this where you get dealt, I think it was 5, and you tossed 2, and then you could play all 3. Some people do some crazy stuff at home games. I don't mind people getting creative with games. So I was playing Pot Limit Dramaha as well at a home game. That was interesting, to say the least, because it's Dramaha, pot limit variety. It was really good. I like not talking to give no info. I'll socialize at the bar, not the table. I can understand that and I can respect that. There's nothing wrong with that, but you have to understand if you are a professional poker player, that if you have a whale who sits at the table and they want to socialize, even if you're a little introverted, like for example, Wayne's a little bit more introverted than I know I'm a little bit more extroverted, but even he will like chat up a whale because he knows it's in his best interest to keep that person interested in playing the game and to keep them interested at that specific table. But does talking give info? If the player is good enough, it does. And what I mean by that is, as a professional poker player, I am constantly reading you 100% of the time. I'm reading you at the table when I'm talking to you. When you laugh, I'm listening to how you laugh because how you laugh might differ. I'm watching you to see if you smile when you talk because one of the things that I learned a long time ago, and this is something I tell my students, if you ever are deciding whether or not somebody has a really big hand, say you're in seat 8 and they're in seat 5, they're on the same half of the table you are, and you're in the tank, just stare at them until they look at you. You can stare at them awkwardly. Obviously, if they're just staring at the pot, just stare at them awkwardly and then just smile. Because when people are really excited, they will subconsciously smile back. So when I'm talking to you at the poker table, I am determining what your natural smile looks like compared to what your smile might be when you're trying to focus hard on, I'm not going to react at all. So yes, talking does give away information. But like I said, it only gives away information to those who are using it. So if you're talking to a whale who's a rec player, who just likes to be entertained and they don't even care about the money, they're probably not going to use that information against you. If you're talking to somebody like myself or Wayne or any of the poker pros who are grinding, chances are, yeah, we're going to pick up some things that you're not realizing by talking to us. That doesn't mean don't talk to us, but now that you know that, you can kind of try to use that to your advantage, if you know what I'm saying. Like maybe give off some fake tells while you're just having a normal conversation. I don't know. Just a general observation. How excited are you for the meetup game? Let me tell you, the meetup game, we have like 40 people on the list. Good Lord. You're telling me we're going to have like 3, 4, 5 tables here at the Venetian, all to play with Wayne and I. Officially, it's Wayne's meetup game. Obviously, I'm here to support him. I say officially because we just had some things that I couldn't sign off on. But Wayne's holding down the fort, so I'm pretty pumped about this. I mean, last night we had the grand opening. They had free hors d'oeuvres. They had like tempura shrimp. They had beef empanadas. They had champagne. They had magicians doing card tricks, which was kind of cute. So yeah, it was a great time. I'm pumped about this meetup game. Let me tell you, the small blind jackpot got up to $270 last night. There's a couple times where it got up to like $180, $200. It changes the game quite a bit. And to answer your question, Swift Poker, how different is PLO online to live? That depends on where you're playing online. Say, for example, if you're playing on WSOP, BetMGM, Poker Stars, the most PLO online is 6 max with 100 big blinds. I'm going to say that again. 6 max with 100 big blinds. Let's just wait for emphasis here. 6 max with 100 big blinds. The reason why I say that is because there is no live game where you're like, yeah, let's play 1-2 PLO with the max buy-ins 200. You'll have that maybe at like a house game. But in all seriousness, online, if you're playing at a place that allows 9 max and 500 big blinds, it's going to be closer to mimicking live play. But generally speaking, 98% of the places out there online are going to be 6 max, 100 big blind max. And the biggest problem that I have with that, I talk to AI engineers for poker AI and poker bots. I do this because I believe that you have to keep games honest online. The biggest challenge that online runs into is collusion, botting. RTA stands for real-time advice strategy, things of that nature. And so when I talk to these AI people who make the AI programs, they make them and they sell them online. I ask them the same question. I say, if I'm playing at a table with 500 big blinds, can your AI program figure it out? And they all come back with the exact same answer. They come back and they say, well, our AI only figures out to about 200, 250 big blinds. So they'll tell you, you should buy our software program, buy in for 100 big blinds, and then when you get up to 250 and leave. That's what they'll tell you because it can't figure it out. So my biggest problem with AI, again, bots, collusion, RTA, AI, is it's more easily available to cheat and be cheated. And I'll also give you another example of this. One of my students who is, I won't say his name, and he never did this, but on a regulated site, Poker Stars, okay, or WSOP Michigan, or BetMGM, or whatever you want to say, a regulated state site, calls me up, because I allow my students to call me in between sessions, and he says, Josh, he goes, my roommate is on the Wi-Fi playing on Poker Stars, and I'm on my cell phone on a cell tower, and we can sit at the same table. Should I be doing this when I'm playing online because everybody else is doing it? I said, no, and don't you ever tell anybody that you had that thought. So again, I won't say what the student's name was, but the fact of the matter is to circumvent even a state-ran site that is taking taxpayers' dollars or helping fund taxpayers can easily be, one have your laptop on your Wi-Fi and then have your phone on a cell tower, and you could be playing 2 different accounts. What's your roommate name? Bob. Oh, mine's George. And then you just play 2 hands at the same table. So it's a little bit easier to collude. I'm not saying you can't do that with other sites. Obviously you can, but I always stress to people, be cautious where you play online. And here's the fact of the matter is, probably 50 to 60% of my volume probably comes online. Like, true statement. Probably maybe 40. Yeah, it's probably about 50% now that I think of it. It's probably 50% of my volume comes online. Swift Poker online is only ever played 6-handed. See, Mujitsu, and you're from England, but most, like 98% is 6-handed. The place I play at, we have 9-handed, but that's a little bit different. Heck, yeah, that's awesome. Do you enjoy playing one round PLO and one round of Hold'em, or do you just like to play one or the other? I think the small blind jackpot changes the game a lot. Small blind jackpot changes everything. Let me tell you that because there are hands. I used to own the first poker social club in Michigan. I don't know if you guys know that, but I had a hand against a gentleman named Sean. We call him Drunk Sean, and the small blind jackpot had $180 in it, and I was the fourth straddle. We had unlimited straddle. So it was a 1-3-6. Most of the time it was like 12-24 game. So it was a 1-3-6. I think I was the 12 or the 24. I can't remember. But there's a raise, and it gets down to Sean, and he looks down at Queen 7 of diamonds, and he has $580 in front of him. This is on a 1-3-6 table. Max buy-in 600, then you can match the stack. I had like 1,200 in front of me, and he just opened reps. There's $170 in the small blind jackpot, and he looks down at Queen 7 rips. I look down at kings. I call. I end up winning the hand, even though flop came 2 diamonds. But I'll never forget, that was the moment I realized, yeah, he's risking 500 to win 180 plus some of the blinds and like one of the raises. But that's how dramatically that small blind jackpot can change the game. When it gets up to 180 and $200, even if you've got 300, you're like, I'm getting an extra $200 to win this pot. So it changes it dramatically. I got banned from MGM Poker because I was talking to my friend on PS4 the entire time. Same table. Oh, well, were you guys both sitting at the same table? I mean, you shouldn't be sitting at the same table and talking to your friend at the same table and playing against them. Yeah, that's not good. Now, if you were just observing them, that's a little bit different, but yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, the sites, the regulated sites, if your IP address is the same, like it goes through a router, and then you log on to the same table, even if you're observing them, I think they just ban you. I think that's like their default. And honestly, I can't blame them. But again, if one of you are on Wi-Fi and one of you's on the phone, it's like you can be right next to each other, and I don't know. It just and you know, I had a friend of mine by the name, he goes by Outlaw. You guys might have seen some $500 flips I did with him in Vegas. He joined an online club on Poker Bros, I think, and he even said to the agent, yeah, it was the fish tank. And there are so many people, because I posted this on a bunch of Facebook groups, there are so many people who came out and they're like, I'm a member of the fish tank, what's going on? Like, they don't have this reputation. He said to the agent who was funding him, hey, can I send you $1,000 and give you 2 different accounts and you can fund both accounts and I can just play with them? And the agent said, yeah, just don't tell anybody. Like, are you kidding me? Do you believe anyone is using ESP or remote viewing, or you think that stuff is made up? Oh, Hanok, that's a subject that I'm very passionate about, remote viewing and things of that, especially if you go down the rabbit hole, but I don't have enough time to talk about that. They caught me by algorithm by how we were playing. Well, Rampage, buddy, don't cheat. And if you get caught cheating, you might not want to mention it online. Talk about remote viewing. Oh boy. I really don't have the meetup game here is in 40 minutes, so I guess I'll give you guys 5 minutes of remote viewing. All I'll say is go down the rabbit hole with Stephen Greer, military intelligence. If you look at stuff for like the Red October and things like that, 40 minutes is enough time for remote viewing. Well, I still have to get dressed. I still got to put on my nice shirt and stuff like that. But yeah, the remote viewing is an interesting topic. Gateway experience. I've never had any remote viewing experiences. Of course, you guys know I tell people I'm very spiritual life coach. My wife walks the shamanic path. So I will tell you, I've done shrooms plenty of times. I've had some very interesting experiences with shrooms. Shrooms are, if they're used in a proper way, they can be used to heal people, and they can be used in fun different ways too. And I've talked to people who've had bad shroom experiences. But when it comes to remote viewing, like I said, if you go down the rabbit hole with Stephen Greer, some background from you guys, my dad was in the military intelligence. And I did some on a cruise ship to win at craps. I could see the dice move differently. Interesting. That seems like a good story. I love good stories like that. But yeah, my dad was in military intelligence. I'll never forget, if you guys have ever seen the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats. I was watching this movie, and the movie is about men who stare at goats, and they would stop their heart from existing. They would make their heart explode and give these goats a heart attack. Initially, they brought out dachshunds, little wiener dogs, and I have 4 wiener dogs, and the men couldn't do it, and they changed them to goats. And I remember I paused this movie when I saw this part because I'm like, this is so crazy. My dad was in military intelligence. He was base commander at a couple different bases. We were stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which is now called Fort Liberty, but it's always going to be called Fort Bragg to me in any case. I called him and I said, Dad, have you ever seen this movie, Men Who Stare at Goats with George Clooney? He goes, no. And he goes, I said, it's about Fort Bragg in 1982 or something. And then my dad told me the whole movie. I was just amazed. Because he was in military intelligence at the time, and he was like, oh, yeah, this one guy who was doing psyops and all this other stuff. Almost everything in that movie is like 100% true. I was just dumbfounded. I was like, wow, that's crazy. So I do believe remote viewing does exist. I think our brains are very capable. Our minds are very capable of a lot of things. One of the things I teach people when it comes to meditation, and thank you, Stephen. You know, Stephen, I got up to $6,500 and I didn't even vlog any of it. I tweeted about it, and had I not run 12 hours before that day, you would have been making a donation. I know that because I know another 12 hours I would have had that. But yeah, no, one of the things I teach people when it comes to meditation is how to focus and train your mind to get down to one thing and to focus on one thing so you can overcome things in your body. And for example, like Wayne and I, even when we were here in Vegas for the summer, we did cold plunges. Well, you guys know I swim in Lake Superior where it's always, always, always cold. And it's one of those things where you can sit in cold water plunging. I know Rampage does it. He's got a cold water thing in his backyard. Doing stuff like that, being able to force your mind to overcome like physical reactions helps train your mind to be able to focus things. And helps train your mind to just focus on one thing and overcome things. Like my brother, for example, Flounder, you guys might have seen him in a video or two. He was told he was never going to walk again. He was in the hospital for 54 days, never going to be able to walk. He did a 10K this year. Thank you, Kevin. So I appreciate that, Ruben. Yes. Hof breathing is very important. I do Hof breathing, not all the time. 110 grain challenge for charity. Yes. I'm going to do that again. I will do a 100 to 10K challenge, but now that I know what I know this summer, I'm going to be a little bit more prepared for it. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you guys. I got to get ready for this meetup game. Wayne's already dressed. He's looking at me. Well, he was looking at me. Maybe he went in the bathroom. But in any case, I have to get dressed. I have to get ready. I appreciate all you guys. If you guys are coming down to the Venetian, again, mix PLO. We're trying to make this a daily thing. And we're going to have 4 meetup games. One's today. We're going to have one in September, one in October, and then one in December. Or I shouldn't say we. Wayne's going to have them. I'm going to be here, though, with him. Wink, wink. So play smart, everybody. I appreciate it, Arizona Snoop. I think that might be you, Brad. I'll probably see you down there. But play smart, everybody, and run like a god.